A personal brand is something that you stand for. It's not about you just showing up just to show up. It's not about you showing face just to show face. It's not about you becoming somebody that you're not. Building a personal brand is the result of deep inner work. So, I am a transformational life coach, aka a life mastery consultant, and I have been doing that for the past 10 years. And I have consulted a brand designer, somebody who did my personal brand colors and my logo and my font and the external things, right? And then she also told me that what I do is actually the real branding work. Because as I said, I'm a transformational life coach. That means when you work with me, you go through a process, right? The first program that I offer is called the Dream Builder. It's a proven, repeatable system of transforming your unconscious desires, who you are, your strength, your stories, your weaknesses, but also teaching you tools and skills on how to harness your own power, your story, your skills, and everything I said to harness it for your success. Okay. So it is real deep work getting to know yourself, right? And that is ultimately a personal brand. It's about you knowing your values, what you stand for. And when I want to take it to the ultimate extreme, it's about something that you would die for, right? So, a personal brand, again, is not something that you put on like a mask and you just pretend to be someone just to be seen. And that's why people who come online, that is my personal perspective on what social media is and how it's also going to change. I believe that. So I believe that. mm, I believe that this is the new social media. The people who actually have something to say create their own channels, right? People who actually have medicine to bring, transformation to bring, teachings to bring, value to bring. That is the era. It has been already the era. People have been making money off of online content. But what I'm talking about today is the result of me attending a networking event today. And of course, I live in my bubble. As I said, I've been a transformational life coach for over 10 years. I have helped hundreds of people, especially women, through their transformational processes, getting them to their next level of freedom, right? Freedom in realizing who they are, how they best move through the world, empower them with the tools and skills of thinking, of behaving, right? So I have been doing that. And obviously, I live in a bit of my own bubble, my own reality. So every time I go to these networking events, I see other women, of course, and where they are in their journey. And that's why I know this reminds me that my work is important. This reminds me that there's so many women, so many people still out there who have a wrong perception about a personal brand and the importance of it, right? Because one of the topics of this um, networking event was that people are afraid to lose their jobs, right? Very educated women, very like women in a little bit of prestigious positions, right? Either with TV or really being heads of communications for big companies. So that's always what I talk about. That is my clientele, like educated women who are in corporate or who have made it to a certain level. But what they really need to learn in this day and age in order to be more independent in the marketplace of life is to build a personal brand, which is, if I say personal brand, which is ultimately knowing who you really are, strengthening your sense of deservingness, feeling safe to actually be seen, working through all of your blocks, right? Working through survival mechanism, working through the fear of being seen, stepping out into who you really are, knowing your values, right? Knowing what you stand for, learning the skills of communication, right? And really ultimately self realization, knowing who you are, right? Your strength, your weaknesses, your inner world, right? Your essence, but also how you deal with stress, how you deal with people, how you network, how you make business, right? How you build a brand. You get it, right? Today's a little chit chatty. So, this is what I've understood. There was one woman in particular where I could just feel her resistance also towards me, but also towards the truth that I embody. That I believe that every woman has to do that work in order to create the life of her dreams, meaning ultimately being independent, whether it is from a man or in the workforce, right? Because she was like clinging onto a job that she has had for a long time, and it's going to change. Like she was working in TV. I mean, who still watches TV? I haven't watched TV probably in the past like 10 years or even longer, right? Like that's not what I do. Like, and you, if you're here, we don't really watch TV, like normal TV, not Netflix or Amazon Prime or these streaming channels. No, TV. Like, who watches TV? Nobody anymore. Like the population is dying out, so obviously she feels threatened, but she doesn't move because most people need to hit the wall before they move. And I speak about that, right? I wish the rock bottom upon you, not as a curse, but as a wake up, right? And also most people only wake up and then take action when there's no chance left, right? When there is no other opportunity. But honestly, that's not necessarily how I moved. I didn't. And I want to speak about that today because I realized, and that is why I want you to really, really get to know your intuition and to act upon it before it's too late, before you crash and burn, before you hit rock bottom. And even if you hit rock bottom, you will get out of it. I know it. It will really wake you up. And it did wake me up on another level as well. But a little bit of my story. I always trusted my intuition and I went with the flow more or less. I studied international business. I like straight went to into a corporate job, corporate finance, being an international accountant. But this is when I realized that's not my life. That's not my purpose. That's not what I'm here for. That is not what I'm supposed to do. So I asked. I was always a believer. I always had trust in the divine. So I knew that there was more for me, and I stepped out on faith, being the Lulu, right? So I stepped out on faith, being the Lulu, and I just did it. But at that time, I didn't hit rock bottom. Like the job was uncomfortable, but it was okay. Like it wasn't so bad. And one thing that I realized along the journey, like I've always had a personality, like an aura, where people actually don't really fuck with me. And what I mean by that is like they don't play with me, right? They don't play with me like that. I feel like people sense that I have this natural authority, so people don't really play with me like that. Maybe they cut me out because I can't really be dominated or controlled, but people don't play with me like that. So the job was okay, and then I left because I knew this was not my place. And I had enough money. Like I was young. It was my first corporate job. In Germany, we don't really have like the huge amounts of student loans that in maybe in other English speaking countries you have. So this is what I did. I left the job and I prayed and I said, I'm going to find my place in life. And then I just dabbled in freedom, right? I went out, I connected to like people that I knew doing like community work, charity work, working with youth, working with children, working with women. I danced again. I told the story a few times. I danced again. And I realized like this is really what it is that I like, but I couldn't make money. So the next avenue, the next exit came, and it was going into like social entrepreneurship accelerators. Social entrepreneurship accelerators also to help you get clear on what impact do you want to have on society. That's why that's what I bring, right? Then I realize, okay, that's the goal. That's what I want, social impact, right? So I went through the accelerator and then I realized like I didn't have what it took yet to actually make the impact that I really wanted. One step after another, right? You step out on faith. There is no guarantee, right? And also today, this woman, she was like, yeah, and how do you know the, like people who have never left their safe space, they always ask for guarantees, right? People who have never left their safe spaces, they always want to know like how does things work. It doesn't work like that. You have to leave the safe space. You have to leave the comfort zone to find out, right? People talk about calculated risks. Sure, that's a good thing. I think that's wonderful, and I think that's what you have to learn through maturity, but maturity only comes through making bad experiences, right? So for me, I knew I had nothing to lose. I was single, I had no children, I was educated, I was already witty. I was always good with people, speaking to people, asking for things, even like asking for jobs, right? Like I was never afraid of that. That was always my style. And that's why I knew I could survive. And that's the real, like that's the real thing that I want to give to you. Like I'm a spiritual teacher, right? I know a lot of the manifestation things, but I'm not going to speak about that too much. This is what you're going to get more of in my programs because I know that those things will not really help you just listening to that because you have to act. You really have to act, right? So what I know is that what I know is that you have to you have to trust yourself enough and know the skills that you need in order to actually step out and do the things that you need to do in real life in the wilderness. People skills, trusting your intuition, asking for things, not being ashamed, right? Those are the real things that I can teach, right? The real, tangible, practical things of how to glow in the dark. There's going to be something coming out. Stay tuned. There's going to be, we're planning something in the background. Glow in the dark is the name, probably. So what I want to say here is I've already had those skills, talking to people, asking for things, right? Asking for a job, being social, just being social and being able to deal with everybody. Old white men, black women, right? Older women, whoever, the black community, the white community, the Arab community. I could deal with everybody because I'm like a multicultural, adaptable, right? Like I have been around those places, so I'm not afraid of nobody. And then I got into corporate. I also know how to move in those spaces. I'm very clean, I'm organized, I'm tidy. So I there was a time where I slept on a girl's couch, right? I didn't know her. I got to know her in working with the community. And then I started befriending her, and then I moved in with her like not much later. There was a whole story around that also with a man. That's why I also say one of my messages is that ladies, don't focus on a man. Do not focus on a man. Up until now, men have only sabotaged my path. And of course, I take full responsibility for it, full accountability. And I'm at a point where I say, I'm not going to focus on men anymore. I'm not going to focus on men anymore until I reach my goal. I listened to one other life coach influencer, Lisa Nichols. I've actually also trained with her. She was a guest trainer in one of my coaching programs, like mentorship programs. So I've I've been with her. Maybe you know her as well. So Lisa Nichols, she speaks about having found the man of her dreams with 55. Maybe that's true. She was she is already self-actualized. She became a millionaire, a multi-millionaire on her own. So maybe that's possible in old age. I don't know. But currently, I don't focus on it. Just saying that, right? Because men, I have only had like bad experiences, to be honest. And again, I'm not saying that that's a universal thing, but I see it. It's a universal thing, and it's a story, right? Especially gifted spiritual women who have a mission on this planet are not supposed to attach themselves to men on this journey, especially with the subconscious belief of I need a man to survive, because that is it. We're here to thrive, right? I'm here to thrive and I want to help you thrive too. So it's not here, it's not attaching to men. But let that story go. I will talk about that maybe sometime else, but I think that's all you need to know. But I moved in with this girl because I had the confidence in myself that I'm not going to be a burden to her, to anybody. Actually, I've always thought I'm a valuable asset. I've known that like 10 years ago, like around being like 25, 26. I lived on my own. I had been working in corporate. I had a car. Like I was already what you call like established or whatever, like doing my thing in the beginning, right? And then I thought, no, let me abandon all of that and let me go out there into the wild. And I knew I had the confidence that, and I had a very small ego, yeah, that I felt like I can't do it. Let me go there. Social impact lab. All right. After the social impact lab, as I said, after the social impact lab, I actually realized that I didn't have what it took to build a business yet, to found, right? To get VC money and then to found a company. No, I knew it. So one day my mom, like, she gave me the link and she said, look, this is like a training for nutrition. That's what it was. I'm a holistic nutritionist, and I jumped on it. What I want to say without telling the whole story again, right? I knew I had it in me to survive, even to survive like a dog. Like you see me, and I definitely stand for luxury, self expression, right? Refinement, investing in yourself, six figures and beyond. That's what I've invested in myself, right? And I've made that money back. And I've like lived another life after that decade that I'm just describing. But I also knew that I was ready for the lows, right? Like being kind of homeless, living with this girl. Then when I started entering the training school for nutrition, I didn't have the full money to invest in my training, but I knew I could do it. So I put down the down payment, I had that money, and then I knew somehow I would work for the rest. And I love that story so much. Like, this is where I actually opened the door, or the door opened for me, right? The door opened for me. I knew I was going to make that money back. I went into the a nutrition school. And as I said again, I have real life skills for every situation, from the bottom to the top, right? I am good with the house. I am good with being attentive. I'm good with cleaning. So I they saw that, like, just me being me naturally. Like, I will pick up things, bring them to the kitchen, have an eye for cleanliness, tidy up, just have like whatever you want to call it, housewife skills, right? It's in my nature. I'm a Cancer, you know. That's very important to me. So that's just who I was, and I just exposed myself as that. And then they asked me from the institute that I trained with, they asked me if I wanted to work there. Ding, 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 jackpot, right? That was a jackpot because not only did I get to immerse myself even more into the topic, into the surroundings of what I wanted to learn everything around health, holistic health. I wanted to be around all these experts, these doctors, these other people who had built brands and had their own survival stories or whatever, right? So I was immersed in it. I was in the middle of it just by my skill set, just by who I was, right? And that's also the thing that everybody, like all of the bigger teachers tell you, right? Who I really like is what's her name? Sanchez. I don't know what her name is like, but she's the contrarian thinker. She's the business builder, right? What I really love about her is that she gets to work. That's her influence, right? Come on, get to work, buy a business, and buy a business that is very practical. It's not about like necessarily like building a brand or becoming a spiritual teacher. No, come on. Some people got to work. Some people got to work, like real tangible work, even women, right? Even though you don't have to pick up the bricks necessarily, right? But you can own like a laundromat. That's not dirty work, you know? And I want to bring a little bit of that inside my work as well, because as I said, I am a spiritual teacher, but it's about practicality, okay? So this is where I started with my nutrition. Then, through working in the Nutrition Institute, which I loved, I just have to say it so much because, like, I got to eat some food. It was just the premium quality of food. The whole training was surrounded or like really focused on vegan, like vegetarian, Ayurveda, and raw food. Like, that was my thing at that time. Beautiful, just the best foods. It was great. By me working in the kitchen there and then assisting with everything, the organization and so on and so forth, they saw it, they liked it, they invited me to work in their hotel. I've told the story before. If you're new here, welcome, right? Then I worked in the hotel. And again, I'm saying that because it's a beautiful story. And every time I work with clients and they're like, oh, I don't have the money, I always tell them, put down the down payment. I will always enter the risk with them because I know that if somebody really wants something, they're gonna make it happen. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. And up until now, like, all of my clients have paid 30,000 euro programs, right? 30,000 euros, and they just started with a deficit of, at that time, like maybe 3,000, at least 10%, 10%, right? So things like that. I worked in this hotel. It was even more of an immersive experience. The food, the best filtered quality water. I lived just next to the forest and then the sea. There was forest, a lake, forest, and then the sea. Oh my God. Like, if I didn't follow the breadcrumbs, I would have never like ended up there. It was amazing. Like, I love speaking about that story so much because it was just so good. And as I said, like, at the end of the time that I worked in the hotel, and it was for a whole season, um, I had paid off the investment of the training through being somewhere where I love to be. And this is where people always say, like, if you want to learn something, like, don't just read books, like, get a job in that field, right? Get a job in that field, get to know people in that field, be around mentors, be around peers, be in that environment, right? Be in that environment, absorb it. And this is what I did, literally. Like, I drank it, I ate it, like I was in the forest, I was at the beach, and I worked in this. It was a retreat hotel. Everything was natural. There was a sauna. Oh, it was so good. It was so, so, so good. And then when it was like when the time was done, I knew the time was over and I'm gonna go home. I have paid off the investment, and I knew, wow, that's how you fucking build confidence. That's how you build confidence. People always ask, like, how do you build confidence? When you do not only hard things, but risky things, right? Risky things that will bring you into uncertain environments or situations, and then you master them because you trust in your skill set. And slowly you build up the skill set and you build up the trust, and then you're ready for the next level, right? So I'm saying all of that to say, because again, you are your personal brand and you don't have to be somebody that you're not. It's going to be a journey of discovery. And especially that girl from today, if she has only worked in that job, she's worked in that job for 10 years now, and she was probably a little bit like around my age. And I'm 36. I'm turning 37 this year. So this this was for me a reminder that you cannot just ask or intellectualize the process. You have to jump. You have to jump, and I have jumped several times up, right? Failing forward, right? But it wasn't even a failure, to be honest. Like that part of the journey was a smooth transition. Like later on, there came a few stumbles in the road, but until then, it was just I knew God. I just knew God. Do you remember at the beginning of the journey, I was like in my corporate job. I was there and I thought, I have faith. I believe in God. And if God made things possible for other people, why not me? Literally, why not me? I can do it. I can do it. And I did it. So, yeah, that's just what I wanted to say. That's just what I wanted to say because that's it. You have to believe in yourself, and then that is the brand, right? There's the story is so much longer, but I think it's enough to just tell that part of the story because it just shows you have to dare, you have to trust your intuition, and you have to follow your interests, right? And you have to love yourself enough to dare to follow your interests and then to make it happen, right? And also, manifestation comes with a job, right? You have to do something, and the something is you giving your natural skills that are easy for you, right? So this is the whole thing about getting paid to be you. At this point, what is very easy to me is speaking in front of the camera, telling stories, my own stories, right? Showing up every day, no matter how I really look. Like, of course, I'm always presentable, but that's not the main focus of this brand, right? It is about being authentic, being healthy, and living my lifestyle, and then being able to present it, right? So you are your personal brand. What are your stories? And I know not all stories start with the big bang like that. They will unfold the stories, but you have to dive deep into yourself. You have to dive deep into yourself and to figure out what is your story? Like how did you get started? And as I also said before, some people wait for the truck to hit them, for the punch in the face, right? The universe telling you wake the fuck up, right? And I didn't have to experience that in this way, especially following my own path. What happened to me was definitely the things with a man. I have to admit that, like, that is my number one lesson, like falling in love with the wrong people and realizing that that is not what I am able to do on this path. I can't attach myself to men. But following my feelings in terms of entrepreneurship, because later on, like, I founded a cafe with my mom, right? I set up my coaching business, creating a six-figure coaching business. Then later on, I became like part of the Miss Germany cast. Then I what else? Like I worked in sales, in big corporate sales for solar energy. Later on, I worked for Uber, and yeah, I think it was an amazing journey, and it still is. It's an amazing journey. It comes with the highs and the lows, and there were definitely lows. There were definitely lows, and that is what sharpened me, right? It sharpened me, realizing like God really made me trust in him or her, right? It's both. So to then dare to go to the next step, right? The first part of my journey was so smooth. I believed in myself. I did it. Okay, check. I know I can do more. I did it. Check. Right? I know I can do more. Did it. Check. I know I can do more. Did it. Check. I know I can do more. Did you get it? Right? But then at one point it crumbled, and yeah, and then that's a whole story about like being in depth and then falling into a little bit of a hole. But what I want to say is that you don't just wake up building a personal brand. No, that's not how it works. Your personal brand is who you are, your values, what you stand for, your wisdom, what you've learned along your journey, and what you want to embody. Who are you? Right? Who are you is a manifestations of your essence, right? Your heart, your essence, who you've always been. Because I am still that girl from when I was a child, right? When I was a child, I was on stage, I was in the circus, I performed, I danced. Like that's who I am. Like I was that child, right? So I haven't changed. Now I come on here dressed like a rock star, but I want to give you practical messages on how to establish yourself in 2026. This is not disconnected from the context. People are afraid to lose their jobs because of AI, right? People are afraid to everything, right? To love, to be in relationships, to have kids, but ultimately people are afraid and not living their life because they haven't mastered themselves. They're afraid, they don't know who they are. Obviously, then you can't make money, right? Because you don't know your real value. And it also comes with the work that I do, right? Or the work that I help you do inside my programs. It's that you will have to find the treasures within yourself, the diamonds within you, the pearls in you that were formed through these pivotal moments in life. Nobody can tell you like this is your brand now. As I also began the video with I worked with a brand strategist or whatever you want to call her, who did the font and the colors and the like the voice and the vibe kind of, right? But that's just makeup. That's just makeup. What the real thing is was my personal transformation and my personal inner work, going through my childhood trauma, realizing things like that, like everything I teach in my programs, like really doing the deep inner work. And then what you see now is the makeup, right? But who I am, like my vibrancy, my aliveness, my youthfulness, and my beauty is really internal. Is really internal, and it comes out. And that's the same thing with the brand. You are the brand. Your story, your personality, your faith, your beliefs, right? What you've learned, what you've been through, and what you ultimately want to teach, what you want to pass on, what you want to signal out into the world, what you want to stand for because of the life you've lived. Not just because you want to attach yourself to some mission, which sounds good, but that's not in alignment with who you are. That makes no sense. And that's what people will ultimately feel, right? That is what is authenticity. Authenticity is knowing who you are and standing on business, right? Standing on your authority. You know that you know that you know that you know that nobody can tell you nothing on that topic, right? That is knowing. That is not believing. That is not auto suggestion. That is knowing who you are. Yeah. So, and it comes with work. It comes with shadow work, deep inner reflection, facing your own demons, taking accountability for your bullshit. I've been through it. I've been through it. So I know what I'm talking about, right? And yeah, I could go on and on. Like, actually, maybe, but that's it. I think that's it for now. Yeah. So you are your brand and people will feel it. You don't have to become nobody else. I know that I am quite, like, I take the position of the mother. I take the position of an authority. Like, I'm not here to dance, even though I love dancing. I am not here to to share with you what I eat necessarily, even though I'm a nutritionist. Mm, you can see and learn those things inside my programs. But the message that I lead with is master yourself and become embodied, right? Show up as the representation of who you've become. I am the product. I am the product of confidence, of belief, of knowing, of authority, of sexiness, right? Of sexiness. Um, and this is who you have to be too. Embodied. Embodied. Not everybody is here to play the same position, right? Merging. Merging my stories, my real life experiences, right? Not only have I, as the story that I told you, not only have I, this is not where my story started, right? Like, even before finishing university, being in corporate, I had a life. And I had a good, like, I had a very interesting life, a very full and rich life, right? I'm mixed. My mom is German, my dad is Ghanaian. My parents, like, I grew up between both cultures. I lived in Ghana when I was younger. I came back to Germany with an understanding of myself as being a black girl, right? Still dominating the field. Like, that's just what I can say. Like, naturally, I'm a very natural leader. Like, I'm very low key. Like, I don't, if I wouldn't have, like, if my calling wouldn't be to talk, because that's my calling, if it wouldn't be like what I know that I'm here to do, nobody would necessarily hear me speak about my accomplishments and so on, because I am actually quite quiet, right? I wouldn't call myself an introvert, but no, I know that nobody gives a fuck. Like, like, people don't give a fuck about you. Like, and if you, even today at this networking event, like, I don't have to brag, like, I don't, like, what I've done. Like, I've done so many things already. Like, where do I start? I start with what I lead with now. That's where I start. I help women to self-actualize, right? I help women to master themselves from the inside out. And as I said, like, this is what happened in my past. Being the child of an immigrant, of a German mother, being in Ghana, knowing both sides of my heritage, which is also very, very interesting if you see this from a soul's perspective. Born in Germany, 3 years in Germany, then going to Ghana when I was 3, and then staying there until I was 6. And we know that the subconscious mind gets formed in the first 7 years, right? So I had deeply immersive experiences in being both of my cultures. What a blessing. And that's ultimately who I am. I am the perfect integration of light and dark. I am white and black, right? My mom's white, my dad is black. I lived in Germany, I lived in Ghana, especially in those formative years. I went to school. I was always cool. I just was. And I think everybody, like, from school, or who remembers me, they always knew that I was cool. I was always a gangster. I was always like, motherfucker. I was. That was just who I was. And I always dared to follow my real desires, right? Dancing, being on stage, as I said, like dancing, being on stage, all of those things. I loved it. It was natural to me, huh? Nobody can tell me nothing. No. And you can't you can feel it. You could feel it. I think like just talking about it and remembering like because I've done the things that I've always wanted to do. Like nobody could keep me from it. It took a while for me to now step on here and regularly create because I think I had to clarify, I had to clear my channel of stepping into my role on a global platform. But in real life, I've always carried that essence. I do what I do, I do what I want, always had God at the center of my life, always, always, but still trying out forbidden things. I got baptized like I chose it when I was 13. I just thought, yeah, let me learn more about God. And when I got baptized, I remember that I had like this high of heels, like plateau platforms in the front like this and in the back like that. And I was 13 and I said, I'm going to get baptized in here. Let's go. So just saying that, right? That's who I am. Like that's not a role. That's not a mask. That's who I have always been. And nobody took it from me. And I'm very, very grateful for that. Actually, like my stepdad, he really always encouraged me to stay like a little showgirl. And my mom also, she did a few things like when you say like this mother daughter thing, but ultimately she left me to do whatever I wanted, and that was good. It was good for me because I could unfold. I never had like the stigma or this taboo. This is what I love about my mom. Like she left us free, but also with including her. So another thing that was definitely a part of my journey was that like as I said, like this performance thing has always been my thing, but I've always I grew up with hip hop, also like let's state the obvious. Like I grew up with hip hop and I grew up like dancing and performing, and then later on in my early teen years, of course, like when you learn like you're also like a sexual being and you find yourself out, um this is where I was also interested in that just by looking into that world. And I remember there was a time where like two of my best friends at that time, like we were thinking like we need a job. I was a waitress back then. And we thought like, oh, we need some other job. Like let's make money, like more money. Let's make more money. And then we look back then, it was even really still looking into the in the paper, like the daily paper, the newspapers, and there was always like a I don't know how you call it, but like an announcement for like sauna clubs, and there was like a little bit of a hidden language for something like a bordel or something with prostitution. I never planned to be a prostitute, never. Like that was not my thing because I always thought that sex was sacred. um but like we were still all drawn to money, sex, and power. That's the thing that I lead with now, as even as a coach, because I had to integrate that. I became a spiritual coach almost 10 years ago because I was always spiritual. Then it amplified my love and light shit, right? But then finally came back to my integration, and now I fully know like who I am and who I've always been. Like I've always been able to glow in the dark. Yeah. And this is also what I thought about Jesus. Like I thought, yeah, Jesus, like that was his life. So I followed his steps. He said, let's go. So that's what I did. And yeah, we never worked at a sauna club, but then one of my friends, she started working in a bordel. She started working as a waitress in a like a like sh- the not cleaner necessarily, like VIP service. Like she gave out the champagne and did the bar and then some other things there. But she was also never a prostitute. So like this is where she worked then. She was my best friend. And then I worked there as well sometimes when there was a lot to do. So there was kind of like people that we knew, right? The pimp who was running the whole thing. Then the prostitutes. One of the prostitutes became one of my friend's best friend. I think they're friends up until now. And so I've gotten to know these people. Big money, big cars, rappers ordering prostitutes into the hotel. Um, what else? Like strippers, like being in a strip club. That was a part of my life. That my friend celebrating her birthday in a big suite in in that bordel. And so we liked it. We liked it because it felt honest, right? And that's exactly what I'm here for too, because I believe every woman wants to feel sexy, even though you don't want to sleep with nobody for money, but you just want to feel free. You want to feel sexy, like being a little bit in the dark, right? The dark lights and the sexy vibes and the music, and a little bit of a free feeling. Like, come on, let's be honest. And that's why I always know people, like if you look too nice, if you act too nice, I can't trust you because you haven't even met yourself. So probably you're a sneaky person. That's how I feel. So that's also part of my journey, and that all happened before I finished my university. Then again, as I said, like the men that I dated, they were all the so-called alpha guys, right? It's not about bragging, but I just want you to get to know me, right? Like really, like the believe up until now, just by looks, like the most handsome, pretty boy around not only town but the whole area that we lived. He was like 2 meters or whatever, right? Like that was the first guy that I ever really dated. The other guy, like another guy that I dated very early, very innocent also, right? When I say I dated somebody, it's not necessarily like I slept around, no. But those were the guys that were attracted to me and I was attracted to them. Almost all of them are like doing it in life, privileged, right? Men who can pick, choose, and refuse, as another beautiful content creator, the red witch, the real red witch. Um, that's what she said, and that was my type, just naturally. And I think again, I believe that women are fooling themselves with not admitting who it is that they want to be with, even with men. Even at this point, I don't care, and I'm not gonna, like, I don't really care about men, but just sharing that that's who I was even before stepping out onto my path of self actualizing is always continuing, right? But knowing, yeah, okay, like I can do whatever, you know, finishing school, cool. Being the first in my family who studied, I can do that. Being the first in my family who went to corporate, I can do that. Being the first who like had no plan, branched out and followed her purpose, I can do that. Opening doors, right? Just opening the doors, social impact lab, then the nutrition training. Okay, I can do that. So I'm saying that also to say that it's steps, right? It's always steps. It's always steps, right? Like and it's in both fields. That's, I think that's very important. It's in both fields. It's not only the academic, but I had like, I was dancing. I was like, in my youth I did so many beautiful things, traveling, dancing, even being like pottery and art, and also being with my friends parents and seeing how they live. Like I lived, I lived. I'm still living. I lived. I've seen things, right? I was not like, even though I had a stable home, which I'm so grateful for, at a very stable home. First, my mom with my dad, and then my mom was with my stepdad, and they're still together until now, and he's a solid guy. So I'm happy. I'm very happy. And I could explore so much on my own with men, with work, but I always went to find out what I wanted. As I said, with the red light district, and later on I worked in a club, like in a music club, and I worked with the owners and with the ones who were the organizers. So I sat at the tables, and I sat at all kinds of tables, execution tables, but also popping champagne tables, right? And I was studying, and I finished it. And so it's the best of both worlds. I'm the best of both worlds. That's how I see it. So yeah, I know it's very braggadocious, but that's just really a personal self-reflection. And I would love everybody to talk about themselves like that, if that's like that. So I'm bringing all of that together right now because I'm just realizing that is the common thread of my life. It's always about integration, the dark world, and then the academic, the dancing, the performing, the being on stage, and ultimately women empowerment, right? Actually helping women, really. That's why it has to be integrated, right? The most brilliant women, they get screwed over by men because they don't understand what it's truly about. It's about life force. It's about your sexual energy as a woman, and it's not about sharing that with the men. It's about taking that and building with it, building the life you desire. Yes. So I really hope that the record was recording. And yeah. So if you want to build a personal brand, you have to have some life you lived. And depending on how much you want to talk about, right? How much you want to share, if you're not ashamed of your life, right? Because that's it. But one thing I learned from another mentor of mine, Arlen Hamilton, she said, and I think it's a very universal thing, is that if you tell your own story, right, even the embarrassing parts, nobody can come and like cut you down because you have already told the story. And I think I spoke about that in another video. I believe that most people don't dare to come out, like most people don't dare to become visible because they know that when they are building like this new personality or this new persona or whatever, they know that they have like people in the back that might disagree with the story or something like that. Or you are ashamed of parts of your story. I'm not. I'm not ashamed of parts of my story. I made mistakes and I learned from them, and I made a few mistakes, especially men. That's why like they were the mistake. Everything else was quite always good, right? But the men was a mistake. And yeah, so there's actually nothing embarrassing about life. Everybody has a story. That's cool, right? Everybody has a story. And the more you lived, that's great, right? You meet interesting people from the dark side and the bright side, right? Like I didn't necessarily tell you about how the pages turned at one point, but that's okay for now, right? So I'm not gonna make this video longer than it is. If you've watched until here, you're a real one. And yeah, I just want to close out again with leaving this message that what is your message, right? My message is self-realization as a woman, divine feminine, mastered woman, dark femme, whatever you want to call it. It's just ultimately being who you are, embodied, and daring to be who you are, embodied, not some spiritual bypassing, always happy kind of smiley shit. Right? No. Right? That's fine. I love smiling and I'm a genuinely very happy and kind person, but we don't have to perform, right? So just find out who you truly are. The more I found out who I am and what my intention is pure as well water, right? As Fiji water. My intention is pure as Fiji water. And that's why the more you know that you're real and that you are intentional and very clear and good-willed, you don't have to pretend. Only if you have something to hide, only if you are a fake bitch, you will have to pretend and put on a mask. Cut it. I mean, nobody has the energy for it, okay? So, yeah, you have to find out who you are. That is the brand. That is the assignment. You have to find out who you are. And then you can confidently step in, because stepping in front of a camera as who you really are is like meeting people as who you are. And if you are able to walk in any room, and I'm able, as I just said, very able to walk in any room, from the darkest room to the brightest room, I can always be me. I know how to behave in any room, but I can also always be me. And if you are able to do that, you can be in front of the camera authentically. So that's it for now. I hope I love this video because I think it's the most chilled video ever, and I'm planning to do more of these. So if you like it, comment down below. And if you want to master yourself and become who you truly are, write me, apply for the Dream Builder program, and let's talk and see if we're a good match to work together. And I promise you, every everything I teach works if you work it, if you apply it. Everything I teach works if you work it. So you have to take responsibility, right? I think that's very important. But I promise you, I will give everything. I'm going to give you my all. But you got to do the work. All right? All right. So see you in the next one. Bye.